And my son was diagnosed on September 13, 2013. And when the sun came up and illuminated that number 13, I just thought that, whatever pain I'm going through right now, and 6 days from now, I'm going to forget about the pain. So I had to just get up and deal with it. And I wound up finishing the race in probably some of the worst pain I've ever been in.
Be Inspired podcast. Real stories from real people. Sharing stories of love and loss, struggles and perseverance, laughter and tears, and overcoming adversity.
So Bert, here we are, filming season 3 already of Be Inspired, and I can't believe we've already gotten 2 seasons under our belt, and we've had amazing guests. And I think now more than ever, it's so important that we bring folks our great stories.
It's about rallying together and truly being inspired. There's so much craziness that's happening in the world right now, and for the opportunity to share these stories, even if we can just get people away from the craziness for just a little bit and get a little bit of inspiration, I think we're doing some good stuff.
Yeah, we need it now more than ever.
Sometimes it takes, unfortunately, catastrophic events to kind of bring people together, but we take these challenges and we move on and we advance and we stick together, and great things come from that.
Yeah, it's all part of life.
The strongest bond of all is family, and on this edition of Be Inspired, we're going to meet a family and a father with an incredible story of inspiration. Hi again, I'm Bert Barron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And welcome to Be Inspired. Lisa, I'm so excited to learn more about our guest who's with us here today.
Yes, I had the pleasure of interviewing you. James Raffone, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me,
James.
Thank
Yes, you have an incredible story, and then some. You and I connected about, I would say, 5 years ago? I interviewed you, and Jar of Hope, your organization, which is named in honor of your son, was fairly new at that time, and I didn't really know much about it. And since then, I've been following your journey on social media, which is incredible. And tell us why you're here, and tell us Jamesy's story and about Jar of Hope.
Thank you. So first and foremost, thank you very much for this opportunity to share my son's journey and other children who are suffering from Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It was back in 2013. My son was 4 years old. He was unfortunately diagnosed with this pediatric disease that is 100% fatal. After 200 years of this disease being around, to date, there's no therapy that is out there that can help these children who are suffering from this disease. And statistically, children lose the ability to walk by age 9. By age 15, they're quadriplegics. They don't have the muscular strength in their shoulders to lift up their arms, brush their hair, or brush their teeth. And then by 17 years of age, typically the children do not have the strength in their chest cavity to lift up their bodies to basically breathe. So the children usually need ancillary breathing devices to sustain life. And if that's not bad enough, usually between 20 and 26, children lose the ability to live due to cardiac arrest. So their heart gives out.
To get a diagnosis like that as a parent, I mean, that's just got to rip your heart out. I mean, you say he was young.
Jamesy was 4 at the time.
Yeah, so actually, wasn't it his teacher who noticed something wasn't quite right?
Yes, he was in preschool, his second year preschool, and she noticed that Jamesy wasn't keeping up with the other children on the playground necessarily when it came to climbing up stairs to walk, to go down a slide. He wasn't keeping up with them, tripping around the playground, not being able to step over obstacles, things of that nature. And she really, God bless her, and thank you for having the courage, because as an outsider, as a teacher, it may or may not be their place to do that, but she had the courage to speak up on my son's behalf. And if it wasn't for her, I don't believe today my son would be where he is today in terms of health and how above the curve he is. And I owe her a great debt of gratitude. But it was her who pointed it out to my wife, and then my wife, Jamesy's mom, really fought the medical community to push to have the only test that can diagnose Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a genetic blood test. And she pushed the doctors to do so because they kept telling her, he's a boy, he's young, he's a baby, all in due time he'll catch up to your daughters. So I have two older daughters, and by 10 months of age, my one daughter was walking. And so we found this to be very troublesome, that he was not doing what other children his age should be doing.
Before I talked to you, I've never heard of Duchenne muscular dystrophy. I heard of muscular dystrophy, multiple sclerosis, but I had never heard of Duchenne. How common is that, James?
So it's a very rare disease. It's called an orphan disease because less than 20,000 children in the United States suffer from this disease, which unfortunately there is not much funding to help find a cure for this disease. So we're left as parents to try and fight for our children's lives, basically. And so there's 1 in 3,500 male births a year where a child is suffering from this disease or diagnosed with this disease. Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a saying in the sports world, James, that they say Father Time is undefeated. And you could ask any person who is an athlete that, Father Time eventually kind of catches up. When you get a diagnosis like this and you're up against an undefeated opponent, where do you get the inspiration from? This had to take a tremendous sort of inner strength with the family and said, I don't know if we're going to beat this, but boy, we're going to fight like hell and we're going to do the best we can.
Bert, you're absolutely correct. So when my wife received the diagnosis, and it wasn't once or the first time we got the diagnosis, I went to 6 second opinions throughout the best hospitals in the Northeast, and they all told me, which was basically like a textbook language, that go home and love your son. There's nothing you or I can do for him. And every time I heard that, it just ripped my heart out more and more and more. And my wife, she had lost her father early at the age of 13. She lost her mother at the age of 30, and now she's looking at a very near future of losing her son. And she didn't take this advice very well. And she wanted to take her own life, getting this diagnosis. And it really, all of this, my son, my wife, not dealing with this well, made me want to fight harder and harder and harder. And September 15th at 7 o'clock in the morning, after we spent the weekend reeling, basically mourning the loss of our son, who's physically still here, didn't sit well with me. And I told my wife, I said, today is the day we fight. We do not cry anymore, because every moment we spend crying over the potential loss of him is 1 minute he loses potentially that I can save his life. And she looked at me and she said, no one's ever lived. No one's ever survived this disease. How are you going to do it? I said, I don't know. I'll figure it out.
And figure it out you did. Yeah. If any, every parent, when they receive a diagnosis like that, their first instinct is, no, it's not possible. We're not going to let this happen. You not only took the bull by the horns, but you jumped on top and ran with it. You truly did. You were a contractor at that time, and we'll get into how that's progressed as well. But the push-ups started, and the marathon started, and you just haven't stopped since day one. So what was the first thing? What was the first plan of action?
So what happened was, initially I needed to start to ask other people for advice, or if they had heard about Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And come to be in the community, my son in Manalapan is the first child, potentially in the history of Manalapan, to suffer from Duchenne muscular dystrophy. So nobody understood what I was saying. And they looked at me like I was crazy, that I was making up this disease. So I had to really become an expert on this disease, and I had to start educating the community, because now my son is in a position where teachers, police, fire, anybody who was ever going to need, my son was going to need their help, they wouldn't know how to help him and potentially could harm him worse. So I started teaching the community about the disease. And how my push-up campaign started, it was because, based on the science of the disease, the dystrophin gene, which is the largest gene in the human body, is based on 79 exons. It resembles a string of pearls, if you will. And how the protein grows in the body is it starts at pearl or exon number 1, and it synthesizes by bouncing down all the way to number 79. So I started a push-up campaign, 79 gyms in 79 weeks. My concept was that I'm going to take this muscle wasting disease and flip it on its ear, and I'm going to talk to everybody who's health and fitness, because everybody wants to become healthy these days. So I went to a gym and I just stopped the class, and it was the Max of Marlborough. And I got in front of the class. The owners allowed me to speak, to share my son's story, the diagnosis that we just heard of, and to see if anybody can help us. And then I asked the class, can you all do 10 push-ups in honor of my son who will never be able to do one? So it was kind of a lesson to teach everybody, no matter how pretty your push-ups may be, you can. And that's kind of become our mantra since September 15, 2013, that people can do things regardless of if they believe in themselves or not. And then that has turned into running ultra marathons.
Yeah, I mean, he has just gotten back, James has just gotten back from New Zealand, and
Wow.
that was an incredible marathon. That was grueling. Tell us about that, James.
Grueling is to say the least. So from our push-up campaign, I've visited 119 gyms worldwide, between Canada, between Hawaii, Australia. I was invited out there. And then right here in New Jersey, in front of 400 people at a time, I was then challenged to run a 171-mile race. It's called the Grand to Grand Ultra. It's in the desert, and the basis of this race, it's an ultra marathon. So you run more than a marathon a day for 7 days while you're carrying everything on your back. I did not know anything on this planet existed like that. I thought the New York City Marathon was the longest race ever. But unbeknownst to me, but here I am, I'm in a position in front of 400 people that would I run this race for my son? And immediately, without even hesitating, of course I said yes. So one thing led to another, and I challenged this race, and 4 other crazy individuals decided to support me on this venture, and they came with me. But along the 171 miles you need to run, you need to climb 32,000 feet. There's an elevation change. Wow. I was not in any way, shape, or form to run this race. I was not prepared. I had a heart attack after climbing 1,000 feet and running, I think it was 107 miles.
Wow.
So they get me to a hospital, and here I am. And so I started thinking about the Duchenne community and how children and my son with Duchenne get up every day. My son smiles, and my wife today, we don't know how. He smiles every day. He's at his breakfast table having breakfast, getting ready to go to school. And I thought to myself, just because my body failed me, maybe this is a life lesson. How can I not go back because I had a heart attack? My body repaired itself. Here is my son every day. His body's breaking down, will never repair it himself. How can I not go back and show the Duchenne community that I am here for their children, not just for me and my son, but for their children as well? So I went back. Not only did I was able to successfully defeat that race, 30 days later, I took on the New York City Marathon of 26.2 miles. And then 60 days later, I ran the race in New Zealand, which is now known as the Alps to Ocean, where you start at the highest point of the city of Oamaru, which is Mount Cook, and you run over 40,000 feet of elevation change, 205 miles, you end up at the Pacific Ocean. And it's a grueling event. And again, you're carrying everything you need on your back to survive for 7 days.
Just an amazing story. We'll come back. We'll spend some more time with our guest, James Raffone, and learn some more about Jar of Hope coming up on Be Inspired.
Moving is difficult. At Lowe's, it doesn't have to be. For all of your residential and commercial moving needs, contact 732-775-4118 or get a free FaceTime estimate. Lowe's, proudly serving New Jersey for over 96 years. IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America is a patient-centric organization dedicated to finding a cure and better treatment options for IgA kidney disease. If you or someone you know was recently diagnosed or to donate, please visit IGAN.org. In this new day and age of online meetings and presentations, you need the best team at the ready. Whether broadcasting your Zoom meetings to Facebook Live or live streaming a fundraiser event, Surreal Streaming Services, with over 10 years of experience, can add confidence to your next live stream event. Call or text 646-498-8888 or visit sur-real.com.
Just tremendous stories of inspiration, right, Lisa? Wow.
Unbelievable. You think sometimes you're fighting, a battle that is insurmountable, and then you listen to your story, and you really don't know who is fighting what these days. And to listen to James talk about his son is just inspires others to don't give up. Because when you just said you had a heart attack, I mean, first of all, your wife must have been like, you're crazy for doing the marathon, but just goes to show the human spirit when it comes to something that you absolutely believe in and have to do in order to find a cure for your son. There's just no holding you back.
No, there isn't.
No.
Me in particular.
Yeah, James Raffone is with us from Jar of Hope here on Be Inspired. James, there's a video that you wanted our viewers to kind of take a look at today. Talk about this video and why you wanted to share it today.
So I wanted to share the video because it shows a couple of things. It shows inspiration, and it shows how one person can make a difference. And we literally broke 2 world records this day, and we set a 3rd world record. And it was literally simply to teach children who were my son's age, because it was 2 elementary schools, grades 1 through 5, and we had 1,100 students come together in less than 8 hours to put together the longest Lego chain ever created at 3,108 feet.
Wow.
And the reason for doing this is because my son is the first child ever with Duchenne muscular dystrophy to sleep inside a hyperbaric chamber. Now, if you're not familiar with the hyperbaric chamber, it's a device 7 feet in length, and when fully inflated, it's 36 inches round. He's the first person to sleep in this chamber because the disease itself says that my son's going to lose the ability to walk by the age of 9. The science community tells us if a child with Duchenne loses the ability to walk, if a study was to come around, they would not be able to go into the study. So my first focus was to how do I keep my son walking as long as possible? So we put him in this device, and then unfortunately, kids his age found out that Jamesy and my daughter at the time, she was in 5th grade while he was in 3rd, found out that her younger brother was sleeping in a bubble. So here I am, I'm thinking, I'm holding push-up world record events. I'm traveling to 119 gyms all over the country that adults now potentially are teaching their children about this newfound disease that one of their classmates are in. Unfortunately, that information was not trickling down, and they were making fun of my daughter and my son. So instead of getting mad, I thought, how do I teach the kids at one time? And I took my son's favorite play toy at the time, which was Legos, and we created the dystrophin gene out of Legos.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
So this video is just amazing, and it really shows kids that, don't underestimate children from 10 years and younger that they can't do something, because they can. These kids were just so inspired to do it. They broke 2 world records.
That's incredible. And just don't step on a Lego.
No.
And barefoot, most painful thing in the world, right? All right, here's a special video. Have a look.
Are we going to break a world record today?
We wanted our children to see that at this young age, they can make a difference in someone's life.
3,108 feet!
Should something happen to my son, I'd like it to go in the history books that he was here and he made a difference. And he was here. We made a mark with something that he loved to do.
$3,100 feet Lego chain. Remarkable. I thought I'd seen everything in this world, Lisa. There was one more thing that I had to see, and it was the video of that chain. That's incredible.
It is. It's so inspiring and uplifting. And not only does that inspire the children, and what a brilliant idea, by the way, to teach them. Instead of, hiding and saying, oh, well, everyone's making... What a brilliant idea to get everybody together. And through the knowledge, there's no more making fun, but your son Jamesy also sees all these children for him. And at the end, you could see how emotional he was, hugging you. What a feeling that he knows that how much love is out there and support. And I just think that means so much. And what you've done is just incredible. And I'm so glad I saw that video. I felt like it was Rocky, when he was running up the stairs. But James, your own story, before we get into how Jamesy is doing, and I know 4 years ago it was a little better than it is today, but you had this contracting business and you lived in Manalapan,
Yes.
correct? Near me. And what happened after that?
So unfortunately, I wanted to start a study because Jamesy was sleeping inside this hyperbaric chamber,
Right.
and it was unbeknownst to everybody. Scientists everywhere I went told me that I'm wasting my time. It's not going to work. Your son is sleeping in a chamber. He's wasting his youth when he could be doing something better. So I started looking inward and really thinking, who am I doing this for? Is it for me to feel better, or am I actually doing this for him to get better? These are some of the greatest minds that you think are in the Northeast in these hospitals. So I put together a study. I sought out the University of Minnesota, and I put together a study where we found 3 colonies of mice to go inside a chamber to replicate what my son was doing, and one never went inside the chamber. And what we found after 22 days of my son being inside the chamber is that something was growing inside the mice. It's similar. So they say what happens in the mice translates to us humans. They're the closest model of systems that we have. That's why they test drugs on mice. They start there. So we started, it was a successful study. So it wasn't a waste of time that my son is sleeping in this chamber. And here we are, fast forward 5 years later, and he's still walking. He's going to be 11 March 31st, and he's still walking. Now we started a phase 2 study. Again, everybody thought I was nuts. And I'm sorry. So when we started the study at the University of Minnesota, it cost us $405,000.
Wow.
And I needed to raise the money. And though we were raising awareness, we weren't raising any money. So I had to do something. And what I did was I sold my business. And I sold everything that was attached, down to my office chair, down to my desk, to any hand tools that I had, to my equipment, to everything, and my trucks. And we raised the $405,000, and we executed the study, and it went off well. And recently, we just sold our house to fund phase 2 of this study. And to me, when you're dealing with this, we went through our 401k to get to this point as well, and it was basically money that we were going to use to put Jamesy through college. But I thought really fast, is if I got this money for him to go to college, what if he doesn't make it to college age? So what good is it? So I put all that money to use to keep him alive, to sustain the best quality of life I thought he could have now. And thank God, everything that I've done thus far has proven to give him what he needs to have or maintain the best quality of life. So we're at a phase 2 study now, which has brought in 4 other children from around the world. We're flying in a child from South Africa, a child from Ireland, a child from California, and there's a child from Pennsylvania who are undergoing an infusion along with hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We bought everybody a chamber to put their child in one. Wow. And to see if potentially what was growing inside the mice is growing inside the children. And I wanted to see if I can supplement what was growing organically inside their body. Would it react faster to the disease? Meaning, would it slow down the progression as well? So James is the oldest at 11. The youngest child is 6. So we're thus far, in 180 days, we found that Jamesy is responding to a 200% increase in muscular strength.
Wow. Incredible.
Wow.
Right.
Every penny is worth even a glimmer of hope. And really, your story, like I said, your love for your child knows no bounds, and I know you will continue to do whatever it takes.
Absolutely.
To keep Jamesy going. We will keep him in our hearts and in our prayers. I just have to ask you, how are your feet after New Zealand? Because I mean, I can't even make it around the block jogging. I can't imagine what you did.
You know, if I could tell you a story, the race is designed in such a way where you run 2 ultra marathons, and they're 34 and 39 miles, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday you're running, it's a 2-day, you got 24 hours to do 59 miles. And when I woke up after, after the second day of doing the 59 miles, my feet were just torn up, swollen that the sides of my sneakers were torn because my foot couldn't fit in the sneaker anymore. And I just, you know, being 49 years old, I just wanted to give up. And as the sun came up, believe it or not, the number on the tent, I was supposed to have tent number 8 for the week. And for whatever reason, I ended up in tent number 13. And my son was diagnosed on September 13, 2013. And when the sun came up and illuminated that number 13, I just thought that, you know, whatever pain I'm going through right now, and 6 days from now, I'm going to forget about the pain. So I had to just get up and deal with it. And I wound up finishing the race in probably some of the worst pain I've ever been in. And, you know, it probably took me another 4 or 5 days when I got home before I can legitimately walk correctly. But nonetheless, I had to do it because my son will never get to that starting line. And here we are, where human beings and our bodies have this amazing ability to recover no matter what we put it through. And that's all I had focus on, is that my body will recover. And here I am. I walked into this studio today on my own volition with my feet intact, and I was ready to run the New York City Half Marathon tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's canceled, unfortunately. But what you did teach all of us today is about love, about the human spirit. You taught your son. And I think more than ever, we need to remember people like you and what you do. And that's what keeps a lot of us going.
Mark Twain once wrote, the 2 greatest days in a person's life is the day you were born and the day you realize why. And I hope people listen to that, understand it, and figure out their why. September 13, 2013 is when my why came to life. I was always, you know, traveling around wondering what my duties in life were, and it really hit me that was brought to me to try and find a cure for this disease.
Yeah. Well, James, we're going to take the sentence, "No one has ever defeated Duchenne muscular dystrophy." We're going to add a word at the end.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. As we wrap up, where can someone go for more information on Jar of Hope?
Please, jarofhope.org.
Okay. Well, strength, hope, love, courage, and after today, we're going to add inspiration, James. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
I'm Burt Barron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And thank you for watching Be Inspired.
Be Inspired, with your hosts Burt Barron and Lisa Anderson Puleo. Director Rod Weber. Created and produced by Michael R. Doyle. Co-producers Lisa Anderson Puleo and Erwin Sternberg. Executive producers Sean Sternberg and Rod Weber. Editor Rebecca Gruber. Filmed at New Beginnings Foundation, Wall Township, New Jersey. And thanks to our sponsors, Loews Moving Service, IgA Nephropathy Foundation of America, and Surreal Stream Services. We here at Be Inspired Podcast would like to dedicate Season 3 to all of those who lost their lives to COVID-19 and honor the first responders and healthcare professionals for their continued sacrifices every day. You all are our heroes. We are stronger together, and in times of adversity, we encourage you to lean on Be Inspired Podcast. Our prayers are with you all.